Hey guys, it's Takasta here again. Welcome to another video review. So today I'll be reviewing the Logitech G500s laser gaming mouse from Logitech, obviously. So this is part of a new line of gaming mouse again from Logitech, the G100s, 400s, 500s, and the 700s. You can tell from my voice that I'm quite tired of doing these reviews, but I might as well do it all in one setting to get it all out of the way, and just to see whether or not this mouse is a worthy upgrade over the older G500. So a lot of people like the G500, even though it had a positive acceleration using the S9500 Avgo sensor. People still liked it. Like, people are very on the fence with this. Some people love it, or some people just hate it. Obviously, if you're a fan of laser or you use this, if you're not a fan, you always stick with the opticals. However, I think it's alright. I think it's alright. It's just not my lasers are not really my thing. That's why I prefer to use optical compared to G500. However, it's still a very, very decent mouse. So on with the price of this mouse. So this mouse is priced at $59. I mean, it is $69. So this is somewhat more expensive than the G500 when the G500 first came out. However, for people who do like the form factor or are just a fanboy of Logitech, you'll probably get this. In my opinion, it is slightly more expensive than most of the other mice out there. However, that's just the way it is. In terms of its weight and dimensions, it is 70 centimeters by 128 centimeters by 40 centimeters. So it is a slightly large mouse. It's slightly longer than the G700, and in terms of this form factor, quite similar to that the G400. But I call this the G500 always like the fat buddy, the fat brother of G400. It is 111 grams, 112 grams without the cord, so it is slightly heavier than the G400. It does feel slightly bulkier in that sense, but obviously it's not as heavy as the G700s, which weighs in at 152 grams. That fat brother of all these mice. So moving on to the build quality and the refresh of this compared to the older G500. This, I think, in terms of the surface, is the closest resembling thing to the original Logitech G100 line. Because the surface is just very resemblant of the G500 in terms of its build quality, the surface, the slipperiness. It just feels very, very similar. However, they just have a different graphic design. So in my opinion, this is not really an upgrade. It would feel exactly the same. The only per se upgrade is really the sensor and the gaming suite, the software. However, I don't consider this a huge upgrade, so people might think this is just Logitech cheaping out and just not really doing anything to improve on it. However, this is a nice form factor. It's an alternative form factor to the G400 that people do like, and I don't blame them for it. It's a nice shape. So if you haven't used the G500 before, the shape it allows your hand to kind of curve slightly to the right. So it's not exactly flat like that. So your hand does curve slightly to the right. So it is slightly comfortable in that sense, and does feel slightly bulkier. The front of the mouse, the buttons, they are like rounded out and they're smoother, not like the straight cuts of Razer per se. So if you can kind of understand that. In terms of its cord, it does employ a braided cord different to that of the G700s and the G400s. So people might like a braided cord, people might not. It doesn't really tangle. This is just personal preference. So, but in the end, it's still just braided. Anyway, moving on to the sensor. The sensor employs, again, the S9808 laser sensor. So this is a new line of sensor from Logitech. They've employed in the G600 and, like I said before, the G700S. So I've done a lot of testing, and this is a really, really decent sensor. In terms of its tracking, obviously it's wired compared to this G700S, which is wireless. In terms of its tracking, you can it does go up to 8,200 DPI. You can move the increments. You can increase the DPI by or decrease by 50. So they're in 50 increments of 50. So that's quite nice, and you can set them in 5 DPI settings using the software. So it goes down to 200 to 8,200. So I did tests at every single hertz for 4 DPI settings, including 8,200. And overall, like if you've watched my G700S video, it's just very good. It tracks very good in terms of its maximum speed. It does perform at like 3 to 4 meters per second as listed on the box. And in terms of its in terms of its jitter, it has very little. Even for 8,200 DPI and 1,000 hertz, 500 hertz, at the highest DPI settings, the jitter is very little. You can see jitter on the pictures. However, it is very minimal. In terms of gaming, I've tried a bit on for Quick Live, tried a bit on low, and I can't really feel it. But obviously, the feel of the sensor itself, the laser compared to opto, is extremely different. If I had to describe it, it seems like it lags a bit, and just the mouse follows slightly. It's very different. It doesn't feel as smooth. That's very bad term to describe it, but that's all I can say for the laser. But some people do like this laser kind of feel compared to the optical. That's all that I have to say about that, really. In terms of its angle snapping, you can turn the angle snapping on. As compared to 400, G400S, and the 700S, you cannot change the angle snapping. What angle snapping is, it's basically prediction. It allows you to draw lines straighter, basically vertical lines, horizontal lines, so straight. But however, if you draw like diagonal lines, it doesn't really kick in. If you can see in this picture right here, actually, I did a test of the angle snapping, and it does in fact snap this line like straight, very, very straight. You can just see it's really working. Right, basically. So, alright, moving on to the acceleration. So, a lot of people complained the G500S had 5% positive acceleration. However, people really didn't like that. Some people didn't mind it. Well, with the upgrade of the S9808, I couldn't really feel any positive acceleration. Just doing like simple movement tests in game, outside the windows, and I can't really feel the acceleration. Maybe it's like a minimal. They decrease the acceleration to like 2 to 3% or even 1%. However, it's almost unnoticeable. So I think that's very good. I think until someone tests the S9808 differently to what I feel, I'm gonna say that there is no acceleration at the moment from my tests. Maybe I'm doing my tests wrong, but I'm like moving the mouse from side to side with different speeds, and it's ending up in the same place. So that's basically my test, and I hope you guys can prove me wrong or verify this as well. Alright, in terms of its liftoff distance, again, it's very straightforward, nothing much, nothing particular, not very high liftoff distance, not very low. It's at standard 2.3, 2.4 millimeters. Moving on to the buttons and the scroll wheel, and this is quite different. For the buttons, again, it uses Omron 20 million rated switches, so very good. You can use it for a long time. And with the scroll wheel, it's very, very different to that of the G700 and G400S. It's more similar to that of the G700. Like, you do have this mechanic which allows you to scroll like forever and just like press it, and you can like scroll in little increments, right? However, the scroll wheel does feel a lot lighter. It doesn't take as much to move to the next indentation, if that makes sense. And once you move to the next indentation, it takes very little force to move to the second and the third and the fourth indentation like that. So in that sense, if you just like scroll the mouse wheel once, it does move like 6, 7, 8, 9 indentations before it stops. Whereas compared to the G700 scroll, it is fairly quite a bit lighter and quite a bit I guess I do prefer this scroll wheel over the G700S scroll wheel. So now moving on to the software. So the software, it does employ the same suite, like I said before, as the G100, 100S, 400S, and the 700S, and the G600. The only difference is you can also program all the buttons through the macros, like I said before. Here are a lot of pictures showing just how you can program the buttons. The G500S is quite nice. Same as the G500, it does come with a lot of buttons. Like, it comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, like 2 buttons here for D-pad switching, which you can program as well, and it's 3 side buttons, which you can program as well. So in that sense, it does offer a lot more flexibility compared to G400, which only has 2 side buttons. But compared to the G700S, the G700S has a lot more buttons in that sense. But I think this is very, very sufficient for those of you who just need like 1 or 2 extra buttons to play around with or to macro with. In terms of it does come with onboard memory, which is pretty awesome. It has 5 DPI settings, which you can set from 200 to 8200, and it also has 5 polling rate settings. I did not mention this in my G700S video. You can change the polling rates from 125 to 200 to 250 to 333 to 500 and 1000. So this is an additional factor which is better than the G400S because you only select 4 different polling rates for that. However, if you can select like 6 polling rates on this and the G700S. So for those of you who like that, I guess it's additional plus. Everything else, for the G500, like I said again, for the angle snapping, you can turn that on or off. And I think that's it for the software. Yeah, and you just like check out these pictures and you can really see what I mean by the upgraded software suite compared to before. So overall, in conclusion, do I think it's a worthy upgrade over the G500? Well, I think out of all the mice, out of all the G series, GS series mice, this does resemble the original mice the most. In terms of its surface, in terms of its button shape, obviously it's the same. The surface feels very, very similar, like very similar. Like in terms of, I don't even think it's an upgrade. It's just like a refresh. It's almost like a mod, to be honest. So I think you really have the G500. Don't even bother with the G500s. If your G500 broke, I mean, by all means, go for it. In terms of the sensor, though, the new upgraded S9808, with the acceleration issue, I think it seems to be solved. I mean, and at 8,200 DPI and the increased polling rates, the jitter is very, very little. So I think that's a very, very big upgrade, and still a very, very solid mouse from Logitech for this G500S mouse. So overall, I've just finished reviewing all three Logitech mice, and it's a good offering. It's a good offering. Although they could have done with a little bit of innovation, but the shape and the sensors I'm still satisfied with them. So hope you guys enjoyed that video review. If you guys liked that video, please subscribe, please like us on iTech on Facebook. And if you need any mouse feed or mice, go check us out at stores.ebay.com/iTechTech. And really, if you buy mouse feed from me, that's the best way you can support me, because it supports me by providing me money to actually buy new mice and do more videos. So that's a very, very big plus, and thanks for all the support you guys have given me. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed that, and see you guys next time.